Greetings and salutations, I'm Jordan the IT guy, and today let's chat about customizing that VS Code window that we installed last week. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, we've gone ahead, we're back here on our Windows 11 machine. Let's go ahead and get this configured. So I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code. Note that nothing has changed since we last talked about this. We can see I have a file here. It's actually going to open up and launch my terminal here. And again, I could have it run it. Now, there's a few things that I want to get configured here right off the bat, just to help you follow along. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enter what's called the command palette. This is how you can do different types of commands or configurations inside of VS Code. Pretty easy. To do that, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-P, and I'm going to toggle on this developer toggle screencast mode here. If I just type in, if I didn't happen to know that it was there, I could just type in toggle, and I could just type in screencast mode. But essentially what this does is this is now going to let you see anytime I use hypercommands or commands to access things like that, you know, Control-Shift-P to hit the module up here, it'll show you what I'm hitting on screen. You'll also be able to highlight and see when I'm clicking inside of the editor as well. So go ahead and look for that. The next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to touch up some font sizes, both for the editor as well as down below, to make sure that it's easier for you to see. So if we just go hit Control-Shift-P, we're going to go ahead and go from there. We're going to type in settings, which will then open up our settings and let us configure things. I'm going to go ahead and go down here and say open settings UI. We could open it in JSON if you were happy to do that, but the UI seems reasonable to do. This will bring us here. First thing I want to do, I want to go ahead and set my font size to maybe something like 32. That seems reasonable to do. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to type in terminal. And if I scroll on down a little bit here, let's actually add one more keyword there, terminal font. I'm again going to add 32 to that as well. That's going to go ahead and make that font size just a little bit bigger to ensure that you can see what's happening on my screen. Now, we may find out that that might be a little bit big going on. Let's just jump back over here and see how that looks. That's actually not too bad. All right. So we jump back over here into settings. We've got a few more configurations to do. The next one I want to do here is I want to set my default language. Now, I had to go in this before. When I created that new file, you'll notice I had to say, hey, save this as a PS1 file. Since I'm going to be working in PowerShell and we're going to be dealing pretty much exclusively with PowerShell for most of this series, I want to go ahead and make it so that my default files always open in PowerShell. So to do that, I'm just going to type in default language up here, and this is going to bring this up. I'm going to go ahead and type in all lowercase PowerShell. I'm going to go ahead and go over here, and now if I hit Control-N to open a new file, you can see that it's by default opened it as a PowerShell window. Now there's some big pros and cons to this. The big pro to this is that it will know, and IntelliSense, we'll talk more about that later, but it's basically how it autofills things for you, knows now that it should use the PowerShell IntelliSense for code highlighting and syntax information for you. Additionally, it automatically knows that by default, it should expect this file should be a PS1, and you'll get this little pretty logo up here that indicates that. Cool. All right. Another couple of quick things here is that I am going to come down here and configure a few PowerShell unique things. The first one that I'm going to configure is if I scroll on down here, I'm going to automatically correct aliases. I don't like aliases at all. I try and avoid using them unless I'm using them for something like just clearing the screen, in which case I might use like CLS or something like that if it's interactive. But in code when I'm writing, I typically will always replace aliases with their actual real name. A couple other things in here is we can come on down here and we can also set on to turn on correct casing, which will enforce the correct casing of commandlets for how they're supposed to be set up. Anything other than that, I'm pretty much happy with this. That all seems reasonable to do. We'll go ahead and close that out. Cool. So I now have something where I can do something like this. And at least it's of a readable size that you all in the audience can read it, can see it, and everything like that. And every new file that we now open opens in PowerShell. Additionally, if I was to do something like write host, all in lowercase like this, and if I hit Control-A, and then if I was to hit Alt-Shift-H, oops, sorry, not Alt-Shift-H, Alt-Shift-F, it automatically fixes all of the capitalizations as well as expands all of my aliases. So it'll automatically fix the formatting. If you don't like doing that, you can actually do something like this. You also, if you happen to have multiple modules or multiple things in your computer, multiple extensions and stuff like that, we'll get into that in a second. Alt-Shift-F may be bound to something else, in which case what you can do is you can hit Control-Shift-P, and you can actually type in format, and it'll say format document, which is, as you can see, normally Shift-Alt-F, but if it's a compromised binding or there's two different things using it, you can just come up here, type it like this, hit enter, and it'll automatically fix your formatting to the current considered PowerShell standard. All right, Last couple of quick things here is we do have some extensions here on the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and go throw a couple of ones at you. I'm going to go ahead and put on Atom One Dark Pro on here just to kind of see what that looks like so you all can see. There's a whole bunch of different options for themes in here and how you want things to look. I'm going to configure this a little bit later on. There's some built-in Dracula ones. Dracula is what I normally use. That's what my normal one is. I'll probably showcase that later on, and I'll get that installed on this. But there's a bunch of different themes. We'll be going into all that stuff later on. You used to need to do a lot more configuring for extensions in it, but as it's become more of a standard across this, more and more of these extensions have been incorporated directly into VS Code. That's it for today. I hope this was very helpful to you, and next week we should be getting back into some normal coding practices. I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.